Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to the Not a Boss Audits and Investigations. And I know this is super impromptu, but I have been spending the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks kind of pouring through a bunch of documents that I came across. All of these are public documents. There's nothing that I'm going to be sharing that is considered doxing or um yeah, I'm not doxing nobody. This is just I found all these documents online, and the more I read, the more affected I am by them. And the more I felt like it gave me more of a picture. Like we hear amazing content creators and former Scientologists, we hear them tell us these stories, right? Of disconnection, of what an auditing session is like, the questions that they ask. We hear them talk about family members, self deletions. We hear about fair game, right? About people getting fair gamed. We hear all of these stories. And as I was going through all of these documents and pouring through them and reading them, it made it more real. I mean, as it's not that it hasn't been real, right? It hasn't been, it's not that it's not real to me listening to their stories. But I think what hit home for me was seeing in black and white. And thank you, NJS55. Thank you for being here. Um, it made me realize how this is just the system doesn't was so broken. Was the system was so broken back then for all of these people that were trying to sound the alarm to the government decades and decades ago, before Scientology even really became as big as it is, before they got their tax exemption. And I kind of feel like us looking at these documents and just kind of processing some of them and some of these people's stories. Hi, Julie. Thanks for joining me. And as we kind of look through some of them and listen to these stories, you're going to see a pattern. And that pattern really is the toxicity that we already hear about was going on back then. And there were so many people trying so hard decades ago in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, trying to code red, as Serge puts it, sound the alarm. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. And the government knew. Government knew all about it. They knew it back in 1950s. They know it now. Why they're not doing anything about it, I don't understand. I've only went through approximately everything that I have found so far. I've only gone through about 50% of it. I still have more to go through. And this has taken me weeks. And I'm like, these people that were trying to sound the alarm, the ones that were trying to get the government to listen to them, I want to just tell their stories. And I'm going to read you guys. I'm going to show you guys the documents, the interviews, the investigations that the government was doing all those decades ago that really went nowhere. And I think that it's going to enrage you guys just as much as it enrages me to think about some of these stories and how they fell on deaf ears. Nobody really did anything. I mean, there were so many different agencies that these people went to. I mean, back then in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, it's not like we have now, right? Like a cell phone, or we can just jump on the internet, send an email to somebody. It wasn't that way, right? Back in the day, it was typewriter. You're typing up a letter to somebody or handwriting a letter and you're sending it through the mail. And the I don't even know the tenacity that some of these people that we're going to kind of learn about and read about their stories, some of them, I'm going to tell you what, some of them are heroes. They really, really are, because these people were trying to get the government by telling their own stories, their own situations, their own, you know, it's so hard to describe. And once we get going in this series, you guys are going to really see what I'm talking about and how they all have the same pattern. Something wasn't right. Something didn't seem right. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars, never really getting anywhere, kind of looking like it's an MLM, getting more people involved. It was back then. You guys are going to see now. The one that we're going to talk about tonight is actually it's not one of the oldest ones I have found. We're not going to kind of start that way. I'm just going to I found one document that had several stories, interviews, um, and I'm just going to go through that. So we're going to start with this particular document, but you'll be able to see over time that a lot of these stories mirror identical stories that we're hearing from all of the second and third generations that are coming out and telling their stories. And you're going to see how they parallel. The stories are identical. It was very eye-opening to me to really pour through some of this. Some of these people went to agencies like the Better Business Bureau because they felt like they were, they paid for these things that Scientology promised they would have if they paid this much money or took this course or that course, and they didn't get it. So some people, they reached out to the Better Business Bureau. Some people, hey there, Scientology up north. Hi. If you guys haven't subscribed to their channel, make sure you do, because they're amazing. They're amazing. Go check them out if you haven't already. Some of these people made complaints to the FDA. One of the biggest complaints that people that I have found so far, like I said, I've only gone through 50% of what I found. There's more. There's more and more and more and more. I mean, I can't even tell you how much information this was for me. And I've only gone through 50% of a very small amount. Okay. Very small. There's a lot. But they went to the FDA. They were making complaints to the FDA because early on in Scientology, and if I get any of this, anything that I say is incorrect or I need more clarification, if there's any ex-Scientologists, former Scientologists that are out there who can kind of help me, because a lot of the people that you will see as we kind of go through some of these documents, there's a lot of the same names, a lot of the same people. They appear in multiple documents, multiple. And I don't know, because I'm a never in, I don't know every one of these names. Some of the names that I have come across, I've been able to kind of Google and find out who they were. There's also some other little things on the internet that I found that I've also saw, okay, now I know who this person is or that person. And we're going to talk about some of these very courageous people. I can't wait. It'll be a very long episode. It's going to may even be a two-parter about a woman named Pearl Harlan. And what her and her family went through, it may be 3 episodes, I'll be honest with you. But that woman, she was not gonna give up, and she was gonna fight back, and she was gonna find a way to expose Scientology, and she went to every agency known to man. So I can't wait to tell her story, because I almost feel like some of these amazing people that tried to sound the alarm with our government, because they're heroes, they shouldn't be forgotten. They shouldn't be forgotten. That's another reason why I thought I'm going to do these. I'm just going to do this series. Some people may not like it. Some people may go, I've seen all that stuff before. That's okay. Tune out. That's all right. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I think there's a lot of people that haven't heard these stories, haven't seen these documents that are never ends. And I think you're going to be interested in hearing some of these stories, looking at some of these documents. But a lot of these courageous people, again, they went to the Better Business Bureau, the FDA, they went to the FBI, they went to all of these, DOJ, you name it. Like, I have found reports and investigations from every government agency, every alphabet soup agency out there. These people were writing and telling their stories. Now, the FDA, I was kind of a little surprised because I had not really heard about anything about the involved with the FDA, other than the fact that Hubbard really was trying to go after big pharma, right? Because he didn't want people taking medications. Well, he wanted to overpush. He was kind of basically pushing the narrative of, oh, all you need to take are vitamins. Take all these vitamins, all these vitamins, all these vitamins, and you're going to be right as rain. Audit sessions, vitamins, winning combo, you're good to go. Guess what? Oh, and don't forget to pay your money before you start your course. That's like his little recipe back in the day. Well, there were so many people. He actually late 50s, I think it was in the late 50s, he was calling these vitamin supplements Dianese or Dianase. I don't know which way you actually say it. I would imagine it's Dianase, whatever. Anyway, there was this whole push for him to kind of like get this out and, start people buying it, right? So a lot of people were feeling like this isn't working, like a snake oil, right? Like he almost as if it was a snake oil salesman, right? So it's interesting, and we're gonna get into a lot of those reports where people have contacted the FDA, and believe it or not, so far in the research that I've done, it appears to me, I'm a layperson, I'm not an attorney, but it appears to me from all of the documents that I have read so far, it appears to me that the FDA did more research and more investigation regarding this vitamin supplement and the e-meter. They were constantly asking people and going and interviewing people, asking them about the e-meter, what it was, how it worked, what it looked like, trying to get copies or photos of it, or even get their hands on one. It was a very big part of the FDA's investigation. So we're going to see a lot of those interviews that the FDA did with a lot of people. Okay. But tonight, I'm sorry, I'm just going to quickly go through NSJ 55. Thank you again for being here, Julie. She says, I have a headache, so I'll just be listening. Julie, I hope you feel better. I'm sending you love and light. Hope you feel better, honey. And Scientology up north, thank you for joining me. And they say, when it comes to Scientology, Church of Scientology, There's no information that is not important to share. Also, every ex-member has their own unique story. True. So true. So true. Um, I had gotten the feedback, and the reason I kind of preface that there may be people who won't be interested in this series that I'm going to do, because some of the feedback I got was, well, hey, that's the past. Who cares about the past? We need stuff now. We need the relevant stuff now. And I see that point. I get it. But it's not my view. My view, I feel the same way. It's all important information. It's all important because sometimes looking at the past gives us a lot of insight into what's going on in the present, right? So we're going to take a look at that. And Irrelevant Panda, thank you for joining me. I know it isn't the topic, but did you read the Unbreakable Miss Lovely, the one about Paulette Cooper? Holy smokes, totally wild. I will tell you, I have not found anything yet, as of yet, regarding Paulette Cooper, but I do know her story, and I've heard her story a few times on other channels, and I have also heard some podcasts. I want to say I first heard her story on, and his name is escaping me at the moment. One of the podcasts, okay? I heard it. Jeffrey Augustine. Yes, I think it was on Jeffrey Augustine's podcast, and probably a few years ago, nothing recent, where he talked about Paulette Cooper. So I'm hoping I'm going to come across some stuff on Paulette Cooper, and we're going to, yeah, because she's super important. So I'm hoping some of the stuff I find, I'm hoping to find things regarding her case, but I don't know. We'll see. So let's get started. And again, these are going to be stories that have, when people would complain to these agencies, the FDA, the Better Business Bureau, the FBI and all these different agencies, they would go out and they would do interviews or phone call interviews, right? Like phone. And then some of this stuff that I have come across has even been reports from the inspectors and the investigators that they put together that are inter-office. Okay. So that is one of the things we're going to take a look at today, is one of those inter-office communications, where an investigator had went to these several different people and got their different accounts. Okay. So we're going to go through that. And let me just pull that up for you guys. Let's see here. I will tell you that most of these files that I did come across, most of these files that I came across, most of them are heavily redacted, But I did end up coming across a website that shows them unredacted. And they're out there. So again, I'm not doxing anybody. This is all public information that anybody can get their hands on. I'm just telling you that right now. Let me just, before we get started here. The cult never changes. It is the same playbook over and over and over again. The past is absolutely necessary to understand the present. Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Okay, so while you guys are seeing it, I'm showing it, but while I read it, I'm not going to be able to see chat. Or wait, let me see if I can move my screen over. Let me see if I can move it over. Hold on. Let me see here. Let me see if I can move this over. That way I can see chat. Okay, I think I got it. Okay. So as you can tell, this is an inter-office communication. March 7th, 1969. This is the Attorney General's office. Okay. Now, Ray McGregor is one of the investigators. Okay. So this is an inter-office communication where he's literally going through, and he's get whoever it's going to, because it says to file. So it's kind of like a lot of them say to file. So a lot of these documents that I came across are just documents where they're like, okay, well, this seems important, so I'm going to just put this together and we're going to file it. We're going to file away. Like, it doesn't really go anywhere. So he starts out in Dallas, February 26, 1969. Millard Heath, executive director, Dallas County Medical Association Medical Arts Building, was contacted. On an earlier visit, the request was made of Mr. Heath that he obtain a copy that he obtain a copy of the Menninger report. I have not found that report yet. A psychiatric study of Scientology, and to obtain as much information as he could from the psychiatrists in the Dallas area regarding their thoughts on Scientology. Mr. Heath had done neither, and in general showed a lack of enthusiasm for our Scientology inquiry. Recontacted Fred Pass, the Dallas Morning News building. It will be recalled that Mr. Pass had conducted his own study into Scientology prior to writing a series of newspaper articles that appeared in the Dallas Morning News in the early part of January 1969. Mr. Pass advised that the new head of the Dallas Scientology branches, Tony Hitchman, had visited with him. It was Mr. Pass's impression that Hitchman had come to Dallas to replace Alan Walter. Alan Walter, just so you guys know, is someone that pops up quite a bit in a lot of these other documents. Alan Walter is somebody we're gonna definitely see later on. According to Pass's impression, Walter had somehow fallen out of favor with Hubbard. Mr. Pass had no further relevant information, but promised his further cooperation with this office. He interviewed a Nancy Mancuso, an employee of the Dallas Morning News, who visited the Dallas branch of Scientology in the latter part of 1968, in conjunction with the article that was being written by Mr. Pass. Following is a summary of her activities at the branch office. So, this is what she put together from her visitation. Number one, she viewed a film 15 to 20 minutes in length of L. Ron Hubbard, wherein through an interview type program, he described the virtues of Scientology. Number two, she received a 20-minute lecture from an individual at the branch office who made explanations about Scientology. Number three, she was introduced to a young man named David. They were seated at a table facing each other, and they were told by the lecturer to stare at each other without movement or conversation. This situation endured for approximately 4.5 minutes, at which time the lecturer intervened and closed the session. Number four, she then received a 15-minute lecture on communications and the Scientology gradient chart. Number five, she then entered a room with a female whom she described as hippie appearing. In this room, she was put on the e-meter, with the e-meter being situated in such a position that she and the auditor could look at the meter. They spoke briefly of her upsets. Nancy's upset, she explained, was trouble with her employer. I find that funny only because she's there on behalf of her employer, who's going to be writing this series, like an expose in the newspaper. I found that a little funny. 6, she was asked by the lecturer, as noted in number 2, to complete a questionnaire, the same consisting of general type questions. Number 7, she visited with registrar who spoke to her of the different processes one could receive in Scientology. She also explained the advantages of the different processes and their cost. The registrar then asked for a check, but was not overly adamant about same. I contacted Now is somebody else. I contacted Mr. and Mrs. W. Major Bowles. Okay. It will be recalled that Mrs. Bowles had written the state welfare department. That's another one. She wrote to the state welfare department complaining about Scientology and the ill effects it had upon their son. The Bowles were very receptive and cordial people and turned over to the writer numerous articles and other materials relating to Scientology. They related the following story. Their son had grown up as a very religious person in a Church of Christ, in a Church of Christ family atmosphere. He had never given his family a moment's trouble until he was introduced to Scientology at 19 years of age. After being introduced into Scientology, he completely changed, gave up his schooling, and became very uncommunicative with his family. His parents claimed that because of Scientology, they had numerous problems with him, which resulted in their calling the police to put with him. I'm sorry, which resulted in their calling the police to put him in jail on 2 occasions and placed him in the psychiatric ward at Parkland Hospital. Their son is presently living with them, although they claim he is not the same as he used to be before Scientology processing, and that once he attains the age of 21, he will re-enter into the Scientology way of life. Because of their hatred for Scientology and the trouble they caused their son and to the local branch, their son was branded a PTS, a potential trouble source. Because of, one second, let me just move this up. Because of his unruly family, their son received a certificate from Scientology certifying him to be a minister in the Church of Scientology. He was active in Scientology and spent weeks in the Austin branch and also had gone to England to St. Hill Manor to carry on further studies. The writer's impression of the situation is that most of the trouble occurring between the Bowles and their son probably could have been prevented had the family taken a more tolerant view, and it was not necessarily Scientology that created their whole problem. Although the family meant well, it seems quite apparent that their son will return to Scientology and create a firm disconnect from them. Okay, I'm going to pause right here for 1 second. So, what bothered me the most, I think, when I started to read this particular account of this family, they never had an issue with their son before, and he was just like a normal teenager. He gets hooked into Scientology, and for really, it doesn't seem to be for all that long. And all of a sudden, they're having to call the police on their son. And they even had to have him placed into the psychiatric ward at a hospital. And yet, this investigator says the writer's impression, because he's the writer's impression of the situation is that most of the trouble occurring between the Bowles and their son probably could have been prevented had the family taken a more tolerant view. And it was not necessarily Scientology that created their whole problem. Like when I read that, I I got so pissed. I was so upset because I was like, these people are telling you what their kid used to be like and what he's like now. And for them to blame the parents. And here these parents were trying to save their son. So that really bothered me. Okay, so there's the next one is from February 27th of 69. Interviewed Richard Stetzel. Mr. Stetzel advised that his wife, to whom he was married for 20 years, and his eldest son, 19 years of age, had disconnected from him because of Scientology. He advised that his wife had become interested in Scientology in 1967 and at the present time was in California, where she has achieved grade OT4. He and his wife had been married in the Catholic Church and through the years had experienced the usual matrimonial disputes. But once his wife commenced with Scientology studies, he was unable to reason with her. In 1968, she commenced divorce proceedings against him because he was not amenable to the teachings of Scientology. In order to save his 20-year marriage, Mr. Stetzel came to the branch headquarters in Austin and conferred with Mr. John McCoy. The reason being that he believed McCoy to be the head of the Texas organization. He conferred with McCoy for approximately 4 to 5 hours, and after being audited and making certain concessions, McCoy called his wife in Dallas at 11:30 p.m. on a Sunday night to stop all divorce proceedings. His wife, upon the orders of McCoy, did that and again communicated with him. Later, with each little problem that would arise in the family life, his wife would call Dolores Stokes. Now, Dolores Stokes is going to be one of these characters that we're going to kind of dive into a little bit later. So, kind of try to keep her name in your kind of mental Rolodex as we go through these series, okay? She's definitely someone who we're going to be focusing on. All right. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Later, with each little problem that would arise in the family life, his wife would call Dolores Stokes, a clear, her personal auditor, who would then phone Stetzel and tell him how to conduct his affairs. Stetzel, being unable to cope with this situation, then commenced divorce proceedings against his wife, receiving same the latter part of 1968. He advised his son had also disconnected with him, this being the influence of his wife, Pat Stetzel. I think that was the last one. So here we are, this poor guy, he really, really is trying to kind of make it work, trying to make it work with his wife. And here Scientology was right in the middle of it. Just sounds so reminiscent of what we hear all the time, how Scientology runs it. They're going to tell you how to proceed in your life. They're going to tell you, and if your spouse isn't on board, if your kid's not on board, if your parents aren't on board, you need to disconnect. Their potential trouble source, right? Or they're a suppressive person because they don't want to lose those other people. And it just blows my mind. It blows my mind, like to see this, parallel of all of these documents that I've been reading over the last 2 to 3 weeks and what we're seeing today. It's the same playbook. You're right. Same playbook. Same playbook. Hey, Dustin. Let's see. How's it going, Dustin? Calling all squirrels, calling all squirrels. There's an event in Coldwater this weekend. Having this and expansion, please come and show your support. Thank you for your from your Coldwater crew. So if anybody is anywhere near Coldwater, Clearwater, I wish I could come. I don't think I can make it over there this weekend though. I don't know. I might be able to. I might be able to, Dustin. I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Um, so yeah, so anybody over there on the West Coast, Sarasota area, all that, just go support them over there. That Clearwater crew, they're amazing. Farrell, Cheryl, Lori Plays, Aaron, all of them, get out there and give them some support. And if I can't make it, Dustin, I promise I will be in your live. Okay, I'll be in your live chat if I can't make it there in person. So, as we close, I wanted to just kind of do a short little one today, and kind of explain what it is I'm doing and what this series is about. And some of these people and some of these players, we're going to talk about some really, really historical players. Like one of the people that we're going to talk about is John McMaster, who reportedly was the very first ever clear. He was the very first clear. And we're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about his experience, and we're going to talk about why he finally left. And he was also interviewed by the FBI, and he was interviewed also by the FDA. And so he tells a very crazy story as well. He talks a lot about why he left. One of those things was some of the punishments that L. Ron Hubbard was doing to people on the Apollo. And he was really big in Scientology. Like for 3 to 4 years, this guy spoke for Scientology, spoke for L. Ron Hubbard. Like, and he was the first clear. And L. Ron Hubbard, one of the things that he used to control this person was the fact that he was a homosexual. And he held that over his head until he couldn't take it anymore. So we're going to talk a lot about some of these key players and some of these courageous, courageous people who, again, like I said, tried to sound the alarm, tried to get that, just as Serge puts it, code red, code red, code red. The shit's bad. And why aren't you doing something about it? And the government, so far, in everything that I have read, they're talking about it. They're talking interoffice communications, lots of interoffice communications, lots of investigations and interviews taking place by all these different 3-letter agencies all over the place and all over the country. We're talking Minnesota, we're talking Indiana, we're talking Oklahoma, we're talking Missouri, we're talking Texas, California, New Jersey, New York, Washington, D.C. I mean, Florida, everywhere, all over everywhere. It wasn't like it was like a tiny little place, one person causing trouble or complaining. No. And these reports, investigations, and interviews span decades, decades. So I hope you guys will come back. I hope you guys will be interested. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. I have not picked a specific day of when I'm going to actually be doing a segment or an episode of. I'm calling it the Scientology Chronicles. I haven't picked a specific day. I will soon. I'm still going through loads and loads and loads of reports and investigations. So I'm still pouring through tons of information. But yeah, we're gonna see a lot of interesting things. Disturbing, interesting, crazy, scary, effed up shit that these people told our government happened, and they knew what was happening. And so far, I have come across nothing. I will say there are a few of the documents, and then I'll let you guys go. I have come across a few of the documents where very big prominent names knew about this. Rudy Giuliani is one of them. Rudy Giuliani played a part in some of this stuff. Hey there, Hidden Existence. How are you, Daniela? So yeah, Rudy Giuliani appears in some of these documents that I found. John F. Kennedy's name appears in some of these documents I found. I think Richard Nixon. A lot of historical people, big people. Yeah, that we're going to find as we pour through them. All right. So next week, for sure, we're going to definitely talk about John McMaster, and we're going to talk about him, his journey into Scientology, how he left, why he left, and we're going to hear his story. All right. So we're gonna. There's several investigations and interviews where he talks himself. He says this is what happened. So we're going to check him out next week. Thanks for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for showing up, and love, light to all of you. And oh, I'm sorry, guys. 1 second. Please remember to always spread love and kindness wherever you go. And if you haven't seen my outro, stick around. I think it's funny as heck. I think you will too. So spread love and kindness wherever you go, guys. Have a great night. Bye.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
We were in the middle of our tournament where my friend John said he found a body in the bushes over there. I ran over there because I'm a healing monk to try and help, but obviously my magic wasn't strong enough because the dude's body was missing a head.
He or she has the ability to create new and better realities and improve conditions.
So my friend decided to try and use a necromancer spell, which didn't work, which I knew it wouldn't.
Being a Scientologist, you look at someone and you know absolutely that you can help them.
And apparently we contaminated the crime scene because that spell uses a lot of glitter.
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn.